Hi, everybody. I'm Brittany Lewis, a breaking news reporter here at Forbes. Joining me now is Congresswoman Nikki Budzinski. Congresswoman, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you for having me. It's great to be with you.
Great. You've been a freshman member of the 118th Congress for a little over a month now. So, first, before we kick things off, how has it been going?
It's been great. It's been honestly an honor of a lifetime. The first couple of weeks, we were obviously very busy in DC, getting sworn into office, getting our committee assignments. I'm really excited. I'm getting to serve on two committees. The first one was my top choice, which was the House Agriculture Committee. Excited about that. I live in a district that is very agrarian, is lots of agriculture, lots of farmland, lots of corn and soybeans. So this is a great opportunity to get that committee assignment. And then I also got an opportunity to serve on the House Veterans Affairs Committee. So that was kind of we had some of our first meetings in Washington before we headed home for this 2 weeks of recess. You're catching me at the end of our second week of recess. So I have been traversing this district for the last 2 weeks and been meeting with a lot of great people throughout the district.
Yeah, you've been on the ground running, but I do want to talk about those committees that you're on. You're sitting on two, as you said. What do you hope to
Yep.
accomplish in both of these committees in the next 2 years?
Well, the House Agriculture Committee, it's really important because this year we're going to be negotiating a farm bill. The farm bill actually only comes up once every 5 years. And because there is so much important work within the farm bill that will touch communities in central and southern Illinois, those that I represent, I'm really eager to really dive into those negotiations. I'm actually going to serve on three subcommittees. Most members actually only serve on two subcommittees. I volunteered for three because really it's that important to our district. The first subcommittee that I'm going to be serving on is commodities. Our top commodities in this district are corn, soybean, and pork. We are top producers of those three commodities in the country, in the world, quite frankly. So, really eager to be an advocate for our family farmers on that subcommittee in those areas. The second is really research. I was just yesterday at the University of Illinois in Urbana-Champaign. They have a world-class agricultural program. So I got to meet with the dean, hear about some of the really innovative work that they're doing in the agricultural space with precision farming and ag tech. And I'll be able to support those efforts on the subcommittee with research and conservation. And then just lastly, I'm getting the opportunity to serve on the rural investment, rural development subcommittee. And because I have so many smaller and mid-sized communities and cities in this district, I'm going to really be able to help be an advocate for things like broadband access. So that's some of the work that I'm really excited about, in particular on the House Agriculture Committee. And then on the House Veterans Affairs, I have two VA clinics in the district. So looking forward to being a champion for our veterans as well.
When it comes to the Farm Bill specifically, do you think you can work together with GOP members? Where's areas in the Farm Bill that you can work together on?
I really hope. I think one of the things I'm really excited about the House Agriculture Committee is it's one of the few spaces where we really still can be bipartisan. I've developed a friendship with another freshman member. He's a Republican, actually representing Des Moines. Des Moines, Iowa, as you know, is the state capital of Iowa. I live in Springfield, which is our state capital in Illinois. Zach cares a lot, or I should say, Congressman Nunn cares a lot about corn and soybeans. So do I. So I think there'll be some places where he and I, regardless of our political party, are going to be able to get things done for our communities on this committee. I also share 6 of my 7 counties with Republican Congresswoman Mary Miller. And so I've reached out to the Congresswoman. We've sat down and met. And while there'll probably be areas where we're not going to agree, the House Agriculture Committee and the Farm Bill, we both thought could be a place where we could. So I look forward to that work.
I do want to talk about more bipartisanship later in the interview, but first, you got your start in politics by interning for both former Congressman Dick Gephardt and former Senator Paul Simon. So tell us, what drew you to politics?
Well, it was when I was on my college campus. I was the president of the College Democrats, no surprise, at the University of Illinois. And I worked on really local races, helping to elect great candidates for county clerk, for state house. And so that was really when I became an activist on the student campus. I worked really hard on voter registration drives and urging and advocating for students to really register and vote on campus. And so that that really led me to these internships. I interned, as you mentioned, for Congressman Gephardt and also Senator Simon. Senator Paul Simon is really kind of my North Star in public service. He was a great United States senator, a pragmatist, a real Midwesterner, but someone that was really able to get things done across the party aisle. And so I had the opportunity to intern for both of them, and it kind of got me the bug.
You talked about him being your North Star. How has that shaped your current month in politics? How has that helped you?
Well, I think it's about one of the things I think of former Senator Paul Simon as a true statesman, someone that was willing to really work with anyone, regardless of party, to get things done. He was a real workhorse, not a show horse. That's exactly who I consider myself to be. I want to get down to the work of the issues that are really going to impact the communities in central and southern Illinois and support working men and women. I think that's so important. When I won in this district, I will tell you, I think the message that I got from voters is, we'll give you this opportunity to go to Washington, but you need to take it and not contribute to the political noise of Washington, but go there to get things done on our behalf. And so I take that really seriously. And that's why I think bipartisanship is so important, working with anyone that you can really work to find common ground with to get things done.
Senator Paul Simon has taught you about bipartisanship. That's obviously a very important theme now as we have a divided government. Democrats control the Senate, Republicans control the House. So what do you think a divided Congress can achieve?
Well, I hope it's a farm bill. I hope that we get a farm bill done. As I said, that only comes up for discussion once every 5 years. I think that's really important for the communities that I represent, for the family farmers, for the universities and the community colleges that are really leading the way in this country in agricultural research, and also for innovative things in the agricultural space like biofuels. I was really excited. Biofuels is something that is actually produced by corn and soybean. So two things that are produced right here in this district. And when we look at announcements like United Airlines, which they just made one a couple of weeks ago, where they'll be hopefully transitioning jet fuel to biofuels, that's a win-win for everyone, for communities in central and southern Illinois. It supports our family farmers. It lowers the cost of carbon emissions, and it saves money on gasoline, which is what I know everybody wants to see. So I'm hoping that the Farm Bill is one of those things we're going to get done in this Congress.
The Biden administration has passed a slew of bipartisan legislation over the past 2 years, like the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act, the CHIPS and Science Act, the Bipartisan Safer Communities Act, and the Honoring Our Pact Act, just to name a few. So aside from agriculture, are there any policy areas that you can see working with members across the aisle on?
Well, I think that one of the things that we should be really focusing in on is workforce development. Workforce development is something that I hear a lot about throughout this district from employers and from business that are facing labor shortages. And labor shortages are being felt not just from someone that might be applying to be a janitor or someone that's applying to be an engineer. It's at all levels in business. And so I think one of the things I really want to prioritize and do it on a bipartisan basis is give people the skills and the workforce training that they need to get into good paying jobs. Doesn't require a 4-year college degree. Let's invest in our community colleges and union apprenticeship programs. Let's give people the certifications that they can to get immediately into work. We need nurses. We need teachers. We need truck drivers. Let's find those folks, get them trained and into the workforce.
Can you give us more specifics? How would you implement these workforce trainings, things like that?
So one of the things that it will be my first piece of legislation, we're going to be introducing it in the next couple of weeks, is an expansion of a federal tax credit for employers and for training programs that often offer pre-apprenticeship programs. Pre-apprenticeship programs are specifically helpful in some of our more underserved communities where folks are really needing the life skills to be set up to be successful in an apprenticeship or a certification program. Understanding showing up to work, how to prepare, how to plan out your public transportation to get to your job on time, how to work with your manager, team building. Those are the kind of pre-apprenticeship life skills that people are learning that then tee them up to be more successful, to complete a certification program. And that'll bring in more diversity, more folks from underserved communities where we might have higher unemployment rates, get them into the workforce. So one of the things I'm really looking at is the LEAP Act and how to expand federal tax credits for those that are offering pre-apprenticeship programs.
I know you said you didn't introduce the legislation quite yet. So, A, I would love to have you back on to talk about it more once it is introduced. But B, so far, would you have GOP support on this?
Well, that's what we're working on. We've had a lot of different conversations with different GOP offices. I think we do have folks that are interested. And so we're in the negotiations right now, but it's really important right now for me. I really want to make sure that as much of our legislation that we're leading on is bipartisan. So we're working to kind of nail down those final details before we do offer this legislation.
Congresswoman, based on everything you're saying now, based on your Twitter, your website, other interviews, you're saying that you're fighting for working families. That's one of your larger themes. What else are you doing to fight for the working families of this country?
Well, I think it's about people are still struggling with rising costs. I mean, we have seen some of inflation, kind of steadied, but it is still really at a very high level. So groceries still are costing a lot. Gas is still high. I know in this district, people are struggling with really high energy bills as we're still trying to heat our homes during a Midwestern winter. So it is for me about how are we prioritizing helping working people keep more of what they earn? How can they keep more in their pockets? To me, it's some simple measures. I obviously very much support middle class tax relief and middle class tax cuts. But also, I would say there are some incentives like extending the child tax credit, which helps working people that have children at home trying to figure out how to afford childcare, for example, that is still an extremely high expense. And for some people, a real barrier to getting back into the workforce. I also think building on some of the successes that this last Congress had, where they capped the cost of insulin at $35 for those on Medicare. Let's do that for everyone, for young people that are struggling with diabetes and are struggling with pain, making difficult decisions between can they pay for their insulin or are they paying for groceries that week? I think helping working people in those ways and in those respects really can make a difference.
Are we close at all at seeing those results that you just said?
Well, I think we've got a long way to go. I think in some ways that is why a Democratic or Republican majority matters and what those majority priorities are. I know for a Democratic House, that was a priority, expanding and, enabling Medicare to negotiate for lower prescription drug prices, expanding and capping the cost of insulin. The child care tax credit was also something that was definitely very much discussed during a Democratic controlled House. So I think we need to get back there. And I think we need to continue to look for candidates and to fight for a majority in the House that's going to keep working families their priority.
It's good to hear that you think bipartisanship is possible because, according to a recent Gallup poll conducted last month, both Democrats and Republicans think the biggest issue facing the U.S. right now is the government itself and, quote, poor leadership. This outranks inflation, immigration, and the economy in general. So how are you working to address the fact that the American people have this sense of loss of trust in the government?
I think it's trying to demonstrate leadership. I mentioned that I've met with some of my Republican colleagues. I made it a point during new member orientation to meet with every single congressperson that touched this district, whether they were Democratic or Republican members of Congress. So I met with Congresswoman Cori Bush from St. Louis. I met with, as I mentioned, Congresswoman Mary Miller. Congressman Mike Bost, who's also a Republican, is now the chair of the Veterans Affairs Committee. So I met with him too, seeking common ground. And I think that's really important. I think that's what the voters of the 13th District of Illinois are expecting of me. And I can do that by demonstrating that, building relationships. After all, this really is a people business. You got to build the relationships and the trust in order to work together on important issues. And that's what I've been working on doing in these first 7 weeks on the job.
I'm interested in knowing a little more about the building relationships aspect of the last month and a half. Give our Forbes viewers an inside peek. Are there any fun anecdotes, behind the scenes stories you have to share that the public doesn't know?
Well, I'll give you one more example. When I first met Congressman Nunn from Iowa, he and I were joking about the fact that in Iowa and in Illinois, our hometowns host the state fairs. So he had suggested, he said, let's do an exchange program. I'll come to your state fair if you come to my state fair. And so we have a plan to actually this summer visit each other's state fairs. I just think it's just a small anecdote, but I think it is a further example of building a relationship, a working relationship where you can seek out common ground, see that there are maybe more similarities than differences in a lot of important areas that help our communities, and work on building that trust to get things done.
Absolutely. And before I let you go, I do want to do a rapid fire Q&A. So I'm going to shoot at you quick questions. You're going to give back some quick answers. How does that sound?
Okay,
Great. Okay,
great.
so let's get started. I mean, the first question does go with the theme of what I just asked, but have you made any new friends or allies in office so far, and who are they?
I would say Congressman Zach Nunn is my friend and my buddy. I had dinner with him 2 weeks ago. I look forward to seeing him again in Washington next week.
Growing up, what political figure did you look to as the type of lawmaker you aspire to be?
I would say Senator Paul Simon was one of them. I'd also say Congressman Lane Evans, who represented the 17th district in Illinois, just north. He was a real labor supporter, working families champion, good person.
What's the one sentence advice you would give your younger self?
Take risks, go for it.
Describe today's Democratic Party in one word.
Unity, unified,
Describe today's Republican Party in one word.
scattered.
President Biden hasn't announced a 2024 bid yet officially, but yes or no, do you want Joe Biden to run for re-election?
If he runs for re-election, I'll support him. Absolutely.
Do you want him to?
I leave that up to him to make that decision.
Who would you support if he doesn't run?
I don't know. There are a lot of really great candidates. I would obviously mention, I think our Illinois state governor is one of them that's considering it, and he would be a good candidate.
In one word, describe the future of the Democratic Party.
Inclusive. I think that, something that former Speaker of the House, Nancy Pelosi, would say is that diversity is our strength, unity is our power. I think that's the Democratic Party.
In one word, describe the future of the Republican Party.
It's hard to prognosticate. I would just say I think it's trying to get back to the middle ground for them, in the middle of the road. I think that's a struggle.
And in one sentence, within the next 2 years, how will this Congress improve the country?
Farm bill.
And in one sentence, what do you want your legacy to be?
That I made a difference in communities that for too long have been underserved and overlooked.
Congressman Nikki Budzinski, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.